Bonjour, habari saleo. My name is Daniel Adeni, a professional officer at ICLE Africa.
My name is Sinetemba Mtetwa, an intern at ICLE Africa.
My name is Paul Curry, manager of the Urban Systems Unit at ICLE Africa. On behalf of ICLE Africa, the African Centre for Cities, Our Future Cities, and partners, I'm excited to welcome all of you to the Rise Africa 2021 Action Festival.
Rise Africa has been growing as a platform of thinkers, doers, and enablers, committed to inspiring action for sustainable cities.
Rise Africa is about building active networks across academia, government, private sector, civil society, and the arts.
Our entry point is not based on articulating problems followed by proposing solutions, but rather on celebrating our cities as places of innovation and culture, while asking, what more can we do to make them sustainable, inclusive, and vibrant?
This festival is hosting 46 sessions from across 16 countries in Africa and the world. Every session aims to share new ideas, showcase ongoing actions, and launch new initiatives by bringing participants together to chart a new route forward.
We hope that the festival program will inspire you to commit to one or more specific actions that you or your organization will take on. As this session closes, you will be redirected to a survey in which you can articulate these actions. We will follow up on these committed actions throughout the year and offer resources, connections, and support. In this way, we are testing the idea that events can galvanize actions, and we hope that you will join us in this effort.
Beyond the session, there are many ways to take part in the festival.
Register for further sessions.
Vote for your favorites in the photo competition.
Watch a variety of inspiring video provocations.
Test your knowledge of African cities from our daily quiz.
And listen and dance to the Rise Africa 2021 playlist.
We hope that you will make all the attempts to reach out to new people and build long-lasting connections.
Before we begin, it is important to note that this session is being recorded, and that by participating, you are consenting to be recorded. All the recordings will be available on the program page after the festival.
And may I say that creative expression is vital for creating new futures for our cities. So we invite you to enter this session in the spirit of creativity and dreaming. Thank you very much.
1. When people ask me where I'm from, I tell them, I am from red dirt and green hills, endless mango trees whose small sun of a fruit is always within arm's reach, smells so sweet your stomach speaks in small roars of impatience as you sip your cup of chai waiting for meals to finish cooking. I am from the sounds of my people, languages so rhythmic you think we spoke in song, the melodies of matatu conductors waving on crowded city streets, and the crow of roosters calling the sun from behind the horizon in the village. 2. When people ask me where I am from, I tell them, I am from a country mispronounced into modernity by wandering white men, from big men with small minds who stole the spoils of our struggles with no shame or foresight. I tell them I come from those who resisted, those whose dreams defied their bullets even after their breath was stolen from their bodies. 3. When people ask me where it is I'm from, I tell them I am from a new story about this country, this continent, this world. A new tale told by new authors, unafraid to wield the pen as a small spear, our ancestors as shield, our history as armor, as we use our words to help write this world anew.
Team, I believe that we can start.
Yeah, my name is Tim Desi, a director with CCA NGO based in Tanzania, and also an expert in sanitation. I want to take this opportunity to welcome every one of you in this session where we'll be looking at urban taboos on sanitation and how celebrations have been used as a strategy to challenge these taboos. In a minute, my colleague, Adriana, will be talking about how this approach on the topic of taboos have been addressed and why celebration may be an interesting entry point to address taboos. But before this, I just want to go over housekeeping rules and issues for the sessions. Number one, this session is talking about taboos, so please be respectful of others' points of view, and if you don't agree with them. Please also be mindful that some of the topics discussed may make people feel uncomfortable. And also, please keep your microphone off when you are not speaking. And we encourage you to keep your camera on so we can see each other during our conversation. However, the session will be recorded, so if you are not happy to have your camera on, that's also fine. We understand there might be people from French speaking, and if you want to ask in French, there will be a room for translation for that. Now, because of time, I would like to introduce my colleagues, Adriana Allen from the Development Planning Unit of University College London, to introduce the themes that we will address during the session. Back to you, Adriana.
Thank you very much, Tim. Hello to all and welcome to all, and very warm happy Africa Day. As Tim said, I just want to say very few words. We have a very rich session, so I don't want to delay the discussion that is to come. But first of all, to explain a bit, where did the impetus for this session came? And it came very much from a project called OVERDUE, tackling the sanitation taboo across urban Africa. And in this project, I guess the first point that we were, like many of you, really bothered and disturbed by the fact that although sanitation has been declared a human right many decades ago, we still know that at least 60% of the urban population across Africa lack any form of adequate sanitation. But furthermore, what we notice is that in a way, we plan, we run cities, we live cities like if feces and urine were not part of them. And this is what got us to talk about the taboo of sanitation and the many taboos within sanitation, with an aim to challenge those taboos, to change the conversation. What we want to do in this session doesn't only relate to sanitation, but relates to many other taboos, many other unspoken issues that are still very much present in African cities. And what we feel is that it is important to bring them to the fore, first of all, to identify what are these taboos, what do they do, what do they silence, who do they alienate, exclude, stigmatize, and why, and how can we challenge that? So very much when we are talking about taboos, we need to bear in mind that we are talking about unspoken rules that travel over time, over history, that imply a prohibition, things that we shouldn't do, we shouldn't talk about, we shouldn't question, and very often they do that with very oppressive consequences. And this is why we talk about challenging those taboos. And more specifically, we thought that perhaps it was productive to focus on the potential of celebration as a way of challenging and disturbing taboos, of changing that conversation. What do we mean by celebration? Celebration can have many forms, many faces. We are talking about dance, songs, humor, street plays, many forms of visual arts, even of writing, radio shows, and so on. Different ways that might be sensitive enough and allow us to have those conversations that otherwise we try to put to the side. So in challenging different types of taboos across African cities through celebration, what we see is a possibility for decolonizing cities and the way they are lived, run, and planned. And when we talk about decolonizing, we are not talking only about the oppressive structures and forms of regulation, social regulation that were established during colonial time. But we need to recognize that there are many historical, but also many contemporary forms of oppression that are still very much alive and need to be challenged. I'm talking about patriarchy, I'm talking about xenophobia, and we will talk about many more. So this is in a nutshell the invitation to explore the possibilities, but also the challenges that celebration as a means to decolonize taboos might bring to us as something that we might want to embrace, to explore throughout our practice, whether we are activists, academics, working in NGOs, working within communities and with communities, and so on. I don't want to delay much more the start of the conversation. We hope to have a dynamic discussion. We have plenty of time after each of the presentations and contributions for everyone in the session to put to the fore their views. As Tim mentioned before, if you feel that you want to share something that you don't want to be recorded, just say off the record, and we will make sure that that's edited out of the final recording. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce a Mentimeter, just a question for all of us to answer. Alban, if you can perhaps help us with the slide, and I will just say a few words. And we're going to have a go at this question and then come back to it at the end of the session. So the question is, what do you think are the taboos in urban Africa that need to be challenged? I talk about a few, you might have more. We are asking you to go to Mentimeter at www.menti.com. Use the code shared on the screen, 59593622. And then I think that you have up to 3 options. So very briefly, with a few keywords, enter a different taboo, yeah, in each of those 3 options that we have. And we will come back to that very shortly. So we give you a couple of minutes for that. Looking forward to the discussion. Thank you. Tim, I guess if you want to introduce the first round of presentations, the floor is yours. Thank you. Tim, I think you're muted.
Yeah, now I want to introduce Neri Lebron, the research fellow for the OVERDUE project, who will lead us in a short survey exercise about urban taboos. I think this is the one that Adriana has already introduced, but Neri will provide further instructions on it. Welcome, Neri.
Thank you, Tim. Actually, I think Adriana introduced it perfectly. So it's just to say that we look forward to hearing additional taboos that you might want to tackle, challenge, decolonize, and we hope to come back on these answers in the final discussion to discuss which types of celebrations could tackle these taboos and what are the potential and the limits. And I'll do it in French. Bienvenue à tous. Donc, je vais faire écho à ce que vient de dire Adriana. Vous pouvez cliquer sur le lien www.menti.com pour introduire le nom des tabous, nommer les tabous que vous aimeriez qu'on discute au sein de cette session. On va les accumuler au fil de la session. On espère revenir sur ces éléments dans la discussion finale pour discuter quels sont les types de célébrations, leur potentiel et leurs limites qui permettraient d'aborder ces différents tabous. Thank you very much, Tim.
Now, yeah, thank you, Neri, for a brief introduction. Although you've spoken in French, I hope there has been some translation in English for those people who could not follow in French. And now I want to invite Richard from Ardhi, who will now briefly introduce our first film from Mwanza in Tanzania. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Prosper from Ardhi University, a research assistant from Ardhi University. And thank you for the opportunity to go first. So I want to introduce to you this video, which is part of this project, which investigates on sanitation injustices and looking for ways to bring justice into sanitation, especially on the concept of taboos. So this video is a video showing the experience of a sanitation festival that took place in Mwanza in December 2020. So I welcome you all to watch the video. Thank you.
We also have our, let's put it, our taboos that we thought that sanitation is a very delicate issue. When we are going to talk about it, people associate with the dirty, with the bad smell, and now what are you talking about? Do you want to accuse us that we don't use sanitation? Do you think we want to talk about sanitation? Let's talk about other things which are clean.
This is Mwanza Federation. They're doing a choir during the sanitation festival. It's a big thing here today here in Mwanza in the hillside.
We tried to organize this sanitation festival to first of all bring to the fore the agenda of sanitation across the population, to bring together stakeholders from the public, private, and popular sectors to share this very important problem and get to them to understand and to give their views about the sanitation issues. We organized the officials from WASA, the public institutions responsible for providing sanitation and water in Mwanza City. We invited people, NGOs like federations, which are very important in Mwanza, which are constructing pit latrines, government departments, private sector, and the community. Was first of all organized in Mabatini, which is a ward which is really poorly served in terms of sanitation. A large part depends on off-grid sanitation, and largely not modified pit latrines. And those, there are also quite a proportion number of people who do not have own sanitation services, especially those who are living on the hills where it's very difficult to dig deep. And secondly, it's an area also where there is shortage of water, meaning that even if you are able to provide sanitation today, it will not be possible to use flush system because of limited water, especially on the hills.
So I found that there is a fear of the low-income earners to interact with the officials to discuss issues around sanitation. So the festival was a tool to bring these people in a way they are like enjoying, because there was some dramas, there was a lot of exhibition there. People they are enjoying at the same time
discussions using local language about their sanitation. Men and women, old and young, school children and non-school children meeting and interacting to discuss this one with the officials also involved in sanitation, listening and understanding from this perspective. This was one of the major reasons. Second reason was that we thought of organizing it in a place where we'll touch the ground, meaning that in one of the neighborhoods, one of the communities which are really have a serious problem of sanitation, where these issues, when they are discussed, when experiences are given out by the participants, one can relate to the place where we are. Because we could have organized the meeting in a hall in the city council. We could organize the meeting hall in a hotel. But we thought that it's important to organize it in the ground where these issues are taking place and where they can be observed. And there one can put a finger like that area there, like those houses there. then people really have the feeling. And even the officials who are there, then will have really feel what the people are talking about. When we use the dramas, when we use dances, when we engage the school children to show the experience of the toilets they use at home, to sketch out in a form of a competition, shows us the toilet you use at home and the toilet which you best like, and why this one you hate it, and this you don't like it, or you like it best this one. These were very important communication tools for us, because the kind of people they are talking in the form of a drama, in the form of dances, but the message was sent home. Meaning, at the same time, people are laughing the way people are putting it. On the other hand, it's also underlining very important facts of what is happening on the ground in reality. Something you will find it very difficult if you have written a paper or PowerPoint presentation to talk about and to send the message on a practical ground or with a flavor of what is happening in reality on the ground.
Using those artistic way like drawings, it was exposing women their daily experience. I mean, women now they're coming up to either cement or giving some more elaboration and explanation about what the kids have started. And another thing is using the federations. We had those federations who are also building toilets. So it was giving other communities confidence to speak when they saw their fellow women, they are fully involved in building toilets. It's a combination.
Despite their limited resources, communities are very proactive. They know that they have a problem. They know that there is an equal distribution of sanitation services. They know that they've not been receiving justice, especially those in the low-income settlements. They know these things, but they are ready. They are also calm and willingly seeing this challenge in a way of saying that we are ready to join forces to solve the problem. The Mwasa found it an opportunity to explain also what plans they have for that area, what challenges they are facing, not being able to provide sanitation in this and this and these localities. At the same time, do it in a manner which is not confrontational. It's not an encounter between people who are complaining, people are supposed to provide services, but it was an encounter between people who are seeking support from each other and who want to be assisted to solve their problem. We also want to be assisted by the communities to be able to address some of the problem of people who do not have sanitation, to address especially problem of sanitation on the hills and what can be done, and therefore to listen to the people's views. At the same time, people want also Mwasa to assist them to improve their sanitation. For example, providing some water so they can link up with this simplified sanitation system, which requires some amount of water, to support in the process of digging trenches using machines and grills which can cut through the hard rocks and which individual cannot do on their own, to negotiate and facilitate access to land for laying the pipes and whatnot. These are issues which Mwasa can do as a public institution. The environment which is entertaining is also very critical, because this makes you open up without the ill feeling that I'm being accused for not having done my part, and therefore all the parties involved find that a common ground where you can talk and chat and share, and at the same time joke. There are a lot of jokes which are driving point home, which are underlining critical concerns, but they are not taken painfully by any of the parties involved.
Thank you, Prof. Kombe, for the presentation for the video that has been played. And now I want to invite Prof. Kombe for Q&A questions. Please, Prof. Kombe.
You're muted, Professor Kombe.
Sorry. Hello, colleagues. I trust that you have enjoyed the video, and I hope that we have a number of burning issues, questions, elaborations which you are seeking. But the aim of the discussion is essentially to try to give you an opportunity and provoke you to ask questions, to ask us, myself, team who was in the program, as well as Festo and other colleagues about these sanitation issues in Mwanza, in terms of the opportunity given and challenges, or the issues which you want to seek clarification. We also want to use this to explore what is in this context, meaning the festival approach. What do you think about it? Where do you see gaps? Where do you see opportunities? And we also want you to ask questions, to make comments, give us, raise a hand, and then we'll give you the opportunity to provide whatever comment you have. You are most welcome. Members, colleagues, if you want to ask any question, seek any clarification.
Kombe, we have a question in the chat, if I can read it out to you. Maya Adams says, have you found that women are able to speak about sanitation when these creative and festive spaces are created? So about the involvement of women speaking about sanitation.
How you found the women are able to speak out. Okay, good. Tim, you want to answer that question?
I think, oh yes, I can.
Hello, Tim.
I can respond, yes. When we had a festival, as you have seen from the video, we had also women and men coming together. And during the conversation, we also provided space for women to be able to share some of their experiences. So although initially they were a bit shy because issues on sanitation sometimes, as what we have known, that sometimes it's very hard for women actually to express themselves in front of other people, but we probed them and they were able to open up and be able to share some of their concerns. And one of the questions that we asked them was, who is responsible to maintain and clean the toilets? And it was very obvious that women were much more responsible for that. And some, of course, said men also are responsible for maintenance of the toilet. So there was an opportunity for that. Prof. Kombe?
Yes, I'll just add that when we talk about taboo, that was a place where women were a bit hesitant, particularly taboos which relates to menstrual period, the taboo which relates to how girls handle their problems in this context where there is no water, where there is no good sanitation facilities up in the hills. And these were areas where they were a bit hesitant to talk about it because that relates to individual experiences. And but when we try to move out and talk to them outside the wider public, definitely they were talking about a lot of other experiences which they couldn't share in public. Is that clear? Do you want an elaboration on that?
Yes, thank you. I think just as a follow-up to that question, I was wondering, not to take too much space, but I think your answer about women taking initiative to then say we're going to clean these toilets, I think is a very interesting example. Do you have any other examples of follow-up, for example, after these celebration events happen, or has there been any follow-up, and are there any examples of how that's happened, and how have they been received?
I can respond to that question. One of the issues that was happening is that at that school that the celebrations were taking place, the school had no toilets at all, even a single drop. So because we brought up the utility, we brought up the municipality and the many officials, so there was an agreement, an action plan from that day that the utility will consider providing sanitation facilities for children at a school. And this is very, very important, particularly to young girls and children who sometimes they lose the days to come to school because of menstruation. So we were able also to get stories from young girls, how the lack of sanitation has been affecting their schoolings at their particular school. So the take home, the action that we were able to develop was that the utility was able to be committed to provide solution for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tim. Hello.
And yes, someone with a question before we move to another video, because we have another video from Sierra Leone. Any questions so far?
I think that
now,
Claudie,
if we don't have a question,
Tim, Claudie has a question.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, Prof, I wanted to know more. I mean, did you get the impression that the topic was actually talked about in the open for the very first time? We've tried to engage that same conversation in DRC, in Ivory Coast as well, through some of the work, and some of the women, and including the women's organizations, were quite surprised. I mean, they were like a bit like you were saying at the beginning, you know, why are we going to be talking about this? And then when we started, they just couldn't stop. They just want to go on and on and on, and they want to do more about it. I mean, do you get that feeling as well?
Yeah, you're right. And in a way, when we started the presentation, there was a lot of shying away and people not being very comfortable when we talk about what we are going to discuss today, what is the agenda, what is our concern, what is the concern of the municipality and the institutions which are providing services in Mwanza. There was a hesitation of some kind and a kind of enclosure. But eventually with the festival, with the kind of elaborations and statements and the exchanges coming from dancers and gomas, and the school children particularly, citing cases and talking about it and challenging parents that we need this and this and these services, it's important for us, and becoming the ambassadors of change, that brought in a kind of an opening in the discussion. And everybody then felt the mood. This is not something about me or about our household or about us in the marginalized groups. It is our collective concern. You are right, Claudia. I can't hear. Am I muted? Tim, are you able to hear? Hello?
Yes, I can hear. I can hear.
Okay, fine. Is that okay, Claudia?
Yes.
Fine. Thank you.
So,
another question? No?
I have, sorry, if there is time for one more before we move to the next block. This is a question to all of you who are involved in the festival in Mwanza, and I just want to share your views on what was the one biggest surprise, the biggest thing that you didn't think about before this change conversation took place. You were not perhaps aware before. Clearly you were aware that open defecation was an issue and you planned the celebration to bring that discussion in an entertaining and surprising way. But was there any aspect that you didn't see before that was quite revelatory for you as well as the organizers?
To me, Tim, I hope we have several. To me, I find the environment for working, the conducive, the friendly, the very socializing environment was a bit surprised, because I thought initially it would be very difficult to get through with the local communities, touching very sensitive issues, which is not often spoken in public and which is very private matter. And the municipalities, I mean the sanitation institute, the water and sanitation authority being brought to the public to be kind of been seen to have not done their part adequately, at least the marginalized groups. And that this is a place for poor people, and therefore feeling that we are being accused of not having doing the proper thing in the city, using facilities just substandard, not having some of them not having trained, and therefore my feel was that, and therefore looking at how the people are responding. But I was very surprised to see that it was not that way. People are eventually saw it as a very important opportunity to exchange in a very friendly and in a very jovial way. At the same time, message sinking down and people really realizing, yeah, this is our agenda. This is our collective action. We need to assist each other to be able to solve it. Therefore, to me, that was a surprise. Tim?
Yeah, I think you have said already, Prof. I think the other surprise was to see how sanitation issues that has no values, but is now being promoted and being celebrated in a big way, with the majority of people coming together. And then the other thing was the different stakeholders coming together, all key stakeholders in the city who are responsible for sanitation were able to come together to celebrate sanitation. Then I was joking with one of the health officers who was saying that people are used to celebrate on issues like weddings, good stuff, but you are celebrating shits. So we were raising the profile of shits so that people can be able to talk about it in a good way, and dancing out of shit. Thank you.
Okay.
If there are
Richard,
no more other questions.
Not really, maybe just to add about the participation of pupils. They were really engaged to the point that you wouldn't think maybe it's a concern to people of their age.
No.
So that was quite interesting, and it was a surprise.
Yes, I think you're right. You're right. Sanitation does not know the age, does not have age.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There is one more point by Barbara on the chat. Barbara and everyone, just to remember that you can unmute yourself and speak directly as well if you want. We are on a meeting, not a webinar.
Hi, thank you. So now I was wondering about the relationship, or if there was a relationship between the idea of the celebration and the holding of the celebration and any kind of advocacy agenda. Like you spoke about how you had all sorts of groups there, youth groups, women's groups, but also all sorts of government officials. So when you did this, were you doing it with the hope that they would take particular actions, or did you include in the celebration a kind of planning moment? I don't know enough about the context to know who is responsible on these issues, but I just wondered if it had an action dimension and what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
Tim, you want to say something about it?
Yes, I thank you very much for the question. It's very true that when we designed the festival on sanitation, we invited responsible people with an intention that there will be sort of like the action forward. And as what I have mentioned already, we invited people from the utility who are managing water and sanitation in the city. We also invited the municipality, and all these people have a responsibility to solve sanitation issues in the city. And to give an example of the action, the school that we did the festival did not have the toilets. And one of the key actions that happened is that the utility and the municipality were committed now to address sanitation at that particular school. So I totally agree with you that we had an intention on advocacy and co-production to bring other people together.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
How, when, where? What, who, how, when, where? Thank you. Can we move on to if there are no other questions, can we move on to the next slide from the next film? Video,
Okay,
sorry.
now, Brahima Koroma from the Sierra Leone Urban Research Center will now introduce our second case study film. Brahima.
Just to jump in to say, Brian has been unable to join, so Awanatu Bangura will be introducing the film instead. So Awa, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Awanatu Bangura. This film you are about to watch is about the celebration of the Disability Day we did in Dwazak and Tomsimbe. They are the two communities I just mentioned are informal settlements in Freetown. And please go ahead and watch the film so we can share our thoughts on it.
My name is Awanatu Bangura, and in the past years have been working on disability in Sierra Leone with various organizations. In 2018, at Freetown City Council, I coordinated the disability sector by bringing together different stakeholders, including disabled people organizations, development partners, to a participatory planning process that gave disabled people the chance for their voices to be included in the current Transform Freetown plan of Freetown. Since then, I've been working for the Sierra Leone Urban Research Center, SLOC, with University College London, leading the implementation of the Action Research Project 80-2030, Assistive Technologies in Informal Settlement, funded by the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. This project has been in 2 settlements in Freetown to understand the aspirations for disabled people and other assistive technology users, for example, wheelchair, crutch, or spectacle users living in informal settlements in Freetown.
80-2030 Research Project works in 2 informal settlements, Tomsimbe and Dwazak, with around 60 people, 3/4 of whom are disabled people and assistive technology users. In the project, we encountered a lot of stigma about disability in the 2 communities and Freetown more generally. Because of this, our disabled participants had never come together as a group before. So we decided together to hold International Disability Day celebrations in Dwazak and Tomsimbe for the first time. For most participants, it was the first
confused. So we also have Dr. Abdullahi, who you saw talking on behalf of the Dorothy Springer Trust there in the video, talking about taboo and stigma around disability. So I'd like to invite any questions. And I see straight away, Vanessa has posted in the comments, in working to counter stigma, it's imperative that efforts focus not just on broader society, but also on persons with disabilities themselves. And I think what I was talking about, that was part of the intention of working on the collective activity on the banners, because the disabled people in the communities we were working in prior to that point were very hesitant to identify as disabled, and so didn't come together to work together. But I don't know if either Dr. Abs or Alwa have any responses to that, or if we have any more questions. So Dr. Abs, would you like to speak to this question about countering stigma and disabled people's own attitudes to disability? You're muted, Dr. Abs. You have to unmute.
Let me just get my mic on. I just realized I'm muted. Well, thank you very much. I have been following since the start of the program, but I've been dipping in and out, so apologies for that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good question about the disabled people's attitudes to this. I think to some extent we're probably just as bad as the non-disabled person in terms of how we think of ourselves. I mean, one way I look at this, Minnie, is around people saying, well, it's like using the word, I'm sorry, I don't know whether I'm going to offend anybody, but it's like, in America, people talking about a nigger, and then you say, well, if somebody else uses that word against you, you feel offended. But if you use it, if you're using it yourself, then it seems like it's okay. Well, I think that's a similar thing with people with disabilities. We can call ourselves different. We can call ourselves names that we want to call ourselves, but we don't feel offended as that, and we provoke each other. But then when somebody else does that, then we feel offended. So I think that's a sort of attitude generally that we have towards ourselves. But I think on the other hand, in terms of how society view us and some of the things that are so difficult. I mean, unfortunately, I think I missed my video. It was really about the difficulty of coming out and saying things in the public that causes a lot of, and I think there's a deep thing about this, it causes a lot of depression to us. I mean, because you have a lot of people that just close in because they're really worried about saying things about themselves in public. So for example, if you take the case that I cited in the video, this is a very close friend of mine. He would never ever say this in public about how he finds it difficult chatting to girls and their response. Generally, he sees that as provocation, that he feels really offended about that. So I think there's a lot of things to say around this. I don't know whether I think I'm just fishing a bit or whether I've gone straight to the point, but I think maybe I need a little bit more clarification on the question too.
Okay, great. Perhaps, and I see we have some more questions coming through from our Francophone participants that maybe Claudia can do. But before that, Alwa, did you have anything to say about how the celebration engage with attitude change more broadly, but also amongst the disabled participants themselves? Oh, are you there? Sorry, I don't see you now.
Well, do you want me to come back on that?
Yeah, I was just trying to see if Alwa wanted to make a response, but she seems to have disappeared.
Sorry, Julian, I was disconnected. Please ask.
Okay. So, Alwa, did you have anything to say about the attitude change, both for the wider community, but also the disabled participants in the celebration themselves?
Yeah, so when we did the celebration, we thought it fit that we should bring the stakeholders of the community. And that effort was positive in the end when we had the feedback of the stakeholders. So for example, we brought the chief and the other community stakeholders, just like what the Fed Up chairman spoke about. Most of the community stakeholders confirmed that they believe in disabled people behind in most of the developments of the settlement. So in terms of planning, they were not putting them on board. They were not thinking about disabled people, but the celebration helped them to understand that inclusion is important. And as well, some of our disabled participants that we had, they also told us sensitive things that some of them were ashamed to come in public. Like we had one of the disabled guy, he's a businessman, a famous businessman, but he just had his disability. He's now a visual impaired man. So he said since he got his disability, he's been hiding in his house. But because of the celebration, he has regained his confidence again to come out and interact with the people. As well as other people, the celebration made a lot of impact in the life of disabled people as well as the community people, the residents as well.
Thanks very much, Awa. I see we have some questions in French. Claudie, would you be able to, I don't want to mangle the translation, maybe you could step in and give us highlights of the questions in French. You're muted, Claudie.
Okay. So it is Emily's question. She's asking, after the celebrations, did other people actually change their outlook on those with disability? Did they actually change the way they viewed them? And then she says, do disabled people actually manage to feel like anyone in their community? Nelly, if you want to, maybe I've missed some, but it basically that, you know, did it change people's view on disability, on disabled people, and did it actually make it more possible for disabled people to live like as everyone else in the community?
Yes, just like I spoke earlier, the celebration made a lot of impact in the life of, because it's not just for disabled people. When we did the celebration, we brought non-disabled residents as well as the disabled people. And there were a lot of testimony, like the market women. That's a popular place people go to buy goods. And the language people use in terms of describing disabled people in Sierra Leone is one of a major issue as well, because most time people use provocative language to talk about disability. So that celebration as well was able to change the perception of non-disabled residents who attended the event, that they never knew about some of the languages they used to talk about disability, but the celebration has helped them. As well as the disabled residents who were shy to come out to interact, because the celebration had never happened in the community. That was the first time it happened, and it made a lot of impact in the life of disabled people. And I've seen like, for example, we have this our participant that was shown in the video, Tina. She was really shy because she's young and she got her disability not too long ago. But when we had one of the popular inspiration by Dr. Hab, who is also part of this session, the message that Dr. Hab delivered on the celebration inspired her a lot, and now she has enrolled to Dr. Hab's training center. She's now learning computer skills. Initially, she told us, I am shy to come out, to interact with people. I think everything I think about myself now is, I think I cannot interact again with my community. But with this celebration now, I am confident again. I have regained my confidence. And now she's attending to the center. She's learning her skills. And she's been also bold, as initially when we started. When we started, even to interview Tina, you can't hear her voice when she talks. But now she can talk, she can perform, she can stand in front of people and show her talent. So I think the celebration made a lot of impact in both the disabled and the non-disabled residents.
Dr. Abbs, I don't know if you have something you'd like to add, and also maybe, because I know you've been involved in a lot more Disability Day celebrations beyond the two communities in Sierra Leone. So anything you want to add there?
Well, I think Howard said most of it, but one is about the language, but also I think it's about people recognizing that people with disabilities important people and people that contribute in society, and as a result that people are able to see some of these talents in these celebrations. I mean, I remember the lad from the Scouts, doing his dancing and all of that, and I think that was a big thing that was really recognized by the community, knowing that people with disabilities are not just useless human beings as we were normally classed here, but there are people that can do things, there are people that can contribute. And I think taking that a step further is really think about some of the achievements, and I think this is what some of these celebrations try to achieve, in trying to showcase, profile successful disabled people, and so that they become role models. And for me, I think the point that Awa made about the language is so important, because you can see that as a result of this celebration, as a result of the collaboration with the community members, that this language is changing. I remember the first time we had a celebration where we brought in the chief and others. I mean, we talked about the language, and this was something that was people were very uncomfortable, because they talked about different languages here, have different ways of describing people with disabilities, until we got to a common point where we recognize that language change and people need to address the individual rather than their disability. It became so obvious, and this chief went back and stood up and said, now I'm going to tell my community, they're never going to call anybody as a cripple anymore. They're going to put the person first. So I think this celebration has a huge impact in the way they change it. But I think looking at it from an international development point of view, it's about the active participation of persons with disabilities. I think this is one day in a year that people with disability can participate and showcase and bring community members and bring government people and in a single place, NGO workers and everybody to say, yes, this is our day and we need to celebrate it, and this is the way we feel inside. And once you expose all that, then people start feeling better. And a case in point, I'm not going to go over everything what Howard said, is really Tina. I mean, Tina was really, really closed in a community that was so difficult for her. And because of that exposure that the celebration created for her, and the fact that she was able to join us in our center, she's a wonderful lady now, very brave. She's outspoken. She stands her own grounds very much. So the celebrations are fantastic. They do a lot. They make a lot of difference, really.
Great. Thank you so much to Dr. Abs and Awa. I'm conscious of time, and we have another short film about menstruation as a taboo. So I just like to say thanks again to Dr. Abs and Awa for giving us their insights on that case of celebration. And maybe we can move on to the next film.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Une jeune fille qui a ses premières règles, quand elle annonce à sa mère, sa grand-mère, alors là, on lui donne des conseils sur la façon dont elle devrait se comporter dans son futur ménage. Parce qu'on s'attend maintenant à ce qu'elle puisse remplir sa vie de futures femmes.
Muito raro ouvir debates públicos sobre menstruação, sobre dores menstruais, especificamente cólicas. E no nosso contexto, pelo menos na Zona Sul, chamamos as cólicas como chilume. Essas dores são vistas como algo normal que a mulher deve suportar.
Donc on dira à la petite fille qui a ses premières règles qu'elle est devenue une femme. Des fois, on lui explique ce que ça implique, des fois, non. Il y a aussi le fait que les règles sont perçues comme quelque chose de sale. Donc on va dire à la petite fille qu'elle doit se laver, qu'elle doit se changer, pas par souci d'hygiène menstruelle en fait, mais on va lui dire qu'elle est carrément sale et que c'est l'impureté qui sort. Encore aujourd'hui en 2021, il y a certaines régions où la petite fille n'a le droit de toucher à rien quand elle a ses règles et tout.
le fait de ne pas avoir accès à certaines nourritures ou à certains espaces, à une mobilité réduite en période de règles. Et ce schéma explique comment, à partir de restrictions comme celle-ci, les répercussions et l'accumulation des effets négatifs de ce stigma sur la question des règles qui arrivent à être connectés au plus haut niveau avec toutes les problématiques des violences faites aux femmes, des difficultés d'autonomisation aussi économiques et sociales des femmes. Et ce qui est important avec un schéma comme celui-ci, c'est voilà, la capacité que développent de plus en plus d'organisations d'analyser la question des règles, dont on pourrait dire qu'elle est voilà, essentiellement un fait biologique, mais de l'analyser comme un fait social et comme un fait politique qui construisent les rapports de genre. Donc, ça fait aussi partie de la déconstruction d'un fait biologique pour en faire en fait un fait social et au final relativement politique.
À proprement parler, les règles de menstruation ne se fait pas, mais si en ville, vraiment, la chose passe inaperçue.
Il y a une dimension un petit peu à la fois sanitaire et technique qui se focalise surtout sur l'absence de protections sanitaires, qui sont souvent appelées d'ailleurs des protections hygiéniques, ce qui évidemment peut renforcer l'idée que les règles qui ne seraient pas gérées avec des tampons ou des serviettes voilà, sortant de jolies boîtes en carton seraient forcément des règles sales. Un autre aspect qui est abordé, c'est la production locale donc de protection sanitaire, qui peut aussi représenter une opportunité économique pour des groupements de femmes ou pour des coopératives de femmes, puisque le prix des protections est assez prohibitif pour de nombreuses femmes dans de nombreux pays, notamment quand ce sont des protections qui sont importées.
En parallèle, de nombreux projets célèbrent la menstruation pour casser les stigmas, remplaçant les cérémonies d'initiation souvent moins marquées en ville et mettent les règles sur la place publique.
Em formato de comemoração, este assunto transcende as fronteiras do grupo-alvo, o que significa que esta informação chega até as pessoas que não estão diretamente ligadas ao assunto, mas que precisam da informação para que possam mudar a sua forma de ser, de estar e de pensar.
Et même pour les règles douloureuses, il y a encore cet amalgame-là qui est, les règles douloureuses sont perçues comme le fait des femmes qui ne sont pas courageuses. Donc quand tu te plains des douleurs menstruelles, on te dit tu n'es pas une femme, tu n'es pas une vraie femme africaine, tu dois supporter la douleur, tu ne dois même pas parler de ta douleur.
Se as cólicas não são tratadas quanto mais cedo, essas cólicas podem evoluir até um estágio avançado a ponto de não permitir que esta mulher consiga ter filhos. Há uma contradição aí, que o nosso Sistema Nacional de Saúde, que gratuitamente apoia as políticas que limitam o número de filhos, não tem as mesmas políticas para apoiar as mulheres que têm dificuldades para ter filhos. Não é valorizada a possibilidade daquelas mulheres que enfrentam dificuldades para conseguir ter filhos. Quando vão para o Sistema Nacional de Saúde, simplesmente têm um tratamento precário que não lhes permite seguir o tratamento até conseguirem resolver o seu problema de saúde.
Certaines femmes, certaines féministes, y compris celles qui ont une approche plus de la santé, c'est vraiment important de faire ça à la fois pour déstigmatiser, casser aussi beaucoup de stéréotypes et de préjugés qui sont aussi des formes de discrimination autour des règles, le fait que quand on a ces règles, on ne peut pas faire certains métiers, on ne peut pas avoir accès à certains espaces publics. À la fois aussi pour les écoféministes, il y a un aspect aussi de célébration, de quelque chose d'absolument vital. Les règles, c'est aussi la vie, c'est aussi la reproduction, la procréation, et donc c'est quelque chose évidemment fondamental. Et puis à côté de ça, il y a effectivement dans pas mal d'espace, et c'est pas simplement au sud, c'est aussi au nord, des femmes qui disent laissez-nous gérer ça, et les femmes ne veulent pas être non plus ramenées à leurs conditions de femmes, elles n'ont pas forcément envie que leur employeur ou leurs collègues sachent que voilà, cette semaine-là, elles ont leurs règles, et elles craignent justement que ça renforce de nouveau cette idée que voilà, parce que les femmes ont les règles, en fait, elles ne sont pas disponibles tout le temps pour être efficaces sur un plan professionnel. Donc on voit que là aussi, il y a à la fois des demandes, mais aussi des réticences autour de ces questions-là.
Alors moi, en tant que blogueuse sexuelle, puisque mon champ d'action, c'est vraiment de décomplexer la parole autour de la sexualité féminine, de tout ce qui est plaisir sexuel. Donc, sur mon blog, je vais aborder des sujets comme la libido qui monte pendant les règles. Donc, on a une hausse des libidos. Je vais parler de masturbation pendant les règles. Je vais parler de rapports sexuels pendant les règles pour dire aux gens que c'est juste des débris d'ovules qui n'a pas fécondé qui s'écoulent.
For watching, thank you very much for those who contributed to the film. We've got Emily with us. Maybe Emily, I don't know if you can. Mais Emily, si vous pouvez peut-être mettre votre caméra, qu'on puisse vous identifier. Donc Emily qui est donc blogueuse sexuelle Emily, who is a sex blogger then in Abidjan, in Ivory Coast, who contributed some of the film. Unfortunately, we cannot have our friend Astrid from the Kivu. She's busy with all the volcano crisis around where she lives. And we do have Katarina with us, of course, which I'm finding her now on the screen, Katarina from Mozambique. So just to give a few seconds of background, the reason why we decided to make that film is that we noticed during the conversations that we've had over the last few months through the OVERDUE project, the issue came up. The issue came up in relation to sanitation, and we thought, well, this is something definitely that we need to explore. We were interested in finding out whether menstruation was the taboo of taboos. So, maybe that's something that we can discuss now. Like you saw on the film, we did find some examples of celebrations, but mainly, as we say, there were celebrations on a more kind of a technical aspect of menstruation, celebrating, the fabrication, the making of sanitary products, for instance. We didn't find so far, many celebration in the way that we have just seen, celebrating disability. Menstruation is still not something that is out in the open in the street for everybody to rejoice and talk about. So at least we didn't find much of that yet. So maybe that's the conversation we could be having now. So Emily, voilà, je sais pas si tu veux commencer à dire quelque chose, or if we have any questions about what
we have a question from Brooke, Claudie. So Brooke, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to maybe ask about, I know like recently there's some like Western celebrities who have been kind of doing free bleeding and things to destigmatize menstruation and periods. But then on the other hand, those sorts of like celebrating the blood and free bleeding practices maybe aren't appropriate in African contexts where there are high HIV/AIDS levels, and you actually really shouldn't be free bleeding and touching other people's blood and things like that. So are there just kind of a question, I guess, about the way celebration might differ between different cultures and societies, and how we can like have African celebrations.
Okay. I don't know, Nelly, do you want to actually translate in writing? Okay. Émilie, si vous voulez regarder dans la conversation, comme ça tout est traduit. So la question, c'est est-ce que dans le contexte africain, par exemple, on a vu au nord beaucoup de célébrités qui parlent de tout ce qu'on appelle le free flow, donc laisser couler les règles, ne pas se servir de protection. Est-ce que peut-être est-ce que peut-être dans le contexte africain, il y a des obstacles, par exemple, autour peut-être de pays où, à cause de l'incidence du sida, où le fait voilà, de laisser voir le sang ou de laisser couler le sang serait peut-être un frein aux célébrations. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez penser à certaines célébrations qui ne pourraient pas être faites de la même manière, en fait, dans certains pays, et notamment dans certains pays en Afrique?
Alors, j'y vais, je peux répondre?
Oui. Will you translate, Nelly, in the chat? Yeah, okay. So read the chat to get the answer in English.
D'accord. Alors, moi, je sais pas si c'est le cas dans toute l'Afrique de l'Ouest, mais principalement en Côte d'Ivoire, là où je vis, les règles, c'est encore perçu comme quelque chose qu'on doit cacher. Donc, salissante, même si on essaie de prôner l'emboursement et on est encore dans la dynamique de protection hygiénique en fait ici. Donc nous, on ne va pas faire de célébration pour apprendre aux femmes à peut-être assumer ou à se passer des serviettes périodiques ou d'autres formes de protection, mais c'est plus de rendre disponibles les protections ici. C'est le principal défi ici en Côte d'Ivoire parce que il y a le manque de serviettes périodiques, c'est pas vraiment accessible pour tout le monde. En moyenne, ça coûte 500 francs. 500 francs, c'est le prix d'un kilo de riz, alors qu'on est dans une population assez pauvre. Donc, nous, ce qu'on fait sur place, c'est vrai qu'on essaie de lever le tabou, mais c'est que les femmes parlent du fait que les serviettes périodiques, les protections ne sont pas accessibles. On parle plus du fait de lever les taxes sur les protections hygiéniques, pardon. On parle aussi du fait de la disponibilité de l'eau. Parce que tout à l'heure, j'ai vu les serviettes qui sont faites en tissu wax. Ça, c'est vrai que c'est réutilisable, mais dans des contrées où il n'y a pas du tout d'eau, c'est compliqué. C'est plus ces défis-là qui sont à notre niveau ici. Après, c'est comme une pyramide des besoins. Donc, quand on va régler ce besoin d'accessibilité, je pense qu'on pourra passer à autre chose. Mais pour le moment, c'est principalement ça le défi ici en Côte d'Ivoire. Après, moi, en tant que blogueuse sexuelle, comme je l'ai dit dans la vidéo, c'est de contribuer en tout cas à libérer la parole autour des règles parce que tant qu'on reste là à dire que c'est de la saleté, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut cacher. On ne va jamais parler des problèmes qui sont liés aux règles des jeunes filles, des adolescents.
Thank you, Emily. Just give a few seconds for Nelly to catch up with the translation. And then I think Katarina had provided an answer in the chat. No, okay, that was your translation. Okay. So Katarina, do you want to say something?
Yes, but for me it's better to speak in Portuguese.
You do.
Yes.
Nelly,
Okay.
translate.
Ok, thank you. Eu penso que em África o sangue é tabu porque é algo que não é falado no contexto, mesmo no contexto familiar, não é algo que é partilhado por todos os membros da família. É algo que é falado somente por um certo grupo restrito, como é o caso das mulheres mais velhas, mães e filhas. No caso em que existem rapazes ou homens num determinado agregado familiar, esta informação não é discutida com todos os membros da família, o que significa que deve-se criar um fórum restrito para discussão deste assunto. Então, esta forma como este assunto é tratado, como é discutido, faz com que seja uma limitação para que este assunto seja celebrado. Porque se o assunto deve ser falado publicamente, não é problema, pode-se discutir por todos os membros da família, este assunto não pode criar barreiras para ser celebrado. Mas a forma como tratamos acaba sendo um tabu e acaba sendo uma limitação para ser celebrado. Obrigada.
I'm sorry, I think I messed up the writing. I don't know if you got it all together. Katarina was saying that indeed blood is a taboo and is not spoken up openly in African societies, especially in Mozambique. It is spoken of by women together, but boys and men are often excluded from these discussions.
Okay, I'm translating back into French. This is a bit tedious. Yeah, and that was the conclusion to Katarina, that, you know, as long as we cannot talk about it, even within the family, there's very little space to actually take it out really in the open, out of the family circle. Ibrahim has a question. Your hand is up.
Yeah, it's not like, but I just want to share some reflection from our festival, because there was an issue that came up about menstruation during our festival in November. So actually from our side here, menstruation is a high taboo and it's been practiced in the secret, and people don't want to talk about it in the open. So there was an example from a lady from one of the informal settlements who was talking about menstruation. We gave her the opportunity to talk to the population about the festival. So that's her when she started talking about there is no enough space for them to practice proper sanitation. Like in the informal settlement, they don't have a space for women, like for toilets. They all use the same toilet, both men. So sometimes they need that kind of space where they can go in and have enough time to clean themselves and then change properly to come out. But most of the time, when they are in this process, people often come to knock at the door wanting to use the same toilet. Maybe most of the time it is men that are on the door wanting to come and use the same toilet. So that actually disturbs them on how to clean themselves during this menstruation. So as I said earlier, it's actually a taboo for us here, because even me that is talking about it, I never had the opportunity to know about these things. And I don't even feel like talking about it as a man. It's being practiced here secretively, so it is not in the open. So even those who want to talk about it in the open, they look at them into different eyes. Oh, these people, they are not ashamed. So or maybe they are just that kind of hearted people to talk about things that should be discussed in the secret. Yeah.
Donc, actually what Ibrahim you are saying, we also heard it in some other conversations that we had, particularly, and we will be producing a few audios around that for the OVERDUE project. But many of these issues came up with students at university around the issue of toilets, the fact that students do not have separate female toilets. And they actually said what you were saying, you know, how this is actually really, well, even during those weeks when they do not menstruate, it's uncomfortable. But during menstruation time, it's even more of an issue, exactly for the reasons that you were saying now. So, Émilie, juste pour dire rapidement, ce qu'Ibrahim disait, c'est que pour les femmes, elles disent dans l'espace public, quand les toilettes notamment sont mixtes, que pendant les règles, notamment, les femmes, elles n'ont jamais le temps, elles ont besoin de plus de temps dans les toilettes, elles n'ont pas le temps de se laver, elles n'ont pas le temps de se changer, il y a toujours quelqu'un qui vient à la porte, toujours des gars qui sont là à la porte pour dire « dépêchez-vous, sortez ». Et on a entendu, nous, beaucoup la même chose, des étudiantes, notamment dans les universités, qui disent que s'il n'y a pas des toilettes séparées, c'est vraiment compliqué. En temps normal, mais en plus, en plus pendant la période de règles. I don't know if you want to react, Emily or Katarina, to this. Okay, we have somebody from Madagascar, Miali, who says, in Madagascar, oh, okay. Menstruation, they're not even taboo. They're just like, what is maudite? Malditas. Comment on dit en anglais? Like a curse. It's a curse. They are a curse. Yeah, so in Madagascar, it's not even that they are taboo, they are just a curse. I think we need to wrap up, but thank you very much for your questions. Anyway, it's a very important topic and I'm pretty sure that it's not the end of it. We will definitely explore more in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Julia, for a very good facilitation. And those who have asked questions, thank you very much. Now, Neri Lebron will now present the result of our Menti survey for discussions. And after that, Professor Adriana Allen will give final thoughts and reflection on today's discussion. Over to you, Nelly.
Thank you, Tim. Alban, could you just refresh it? Because I'm surprised this is the main taboos that came up.
Mine is missing. Mine
is missing too. So, but I don't want to monopolize the conversation. This is really a discussion, and we're looking forward to hearing different discussions on taboos that you might have identified and would like to discuss, but that are not yet here. So if we look now at what's written, as taboos, we have the question of menstruation, sexual health, female hygiene, that maybe we've been discussing in the last presentation with Claudie, Emily, Katerina, Ibrahim. Also the question of a new one that we didn't mention at all, prostate cancer, which I think is quite an interesting one. And I would be interested if someone wants to elaborate or bounce back on this, which I guess is taboo in many places. Terminology, I would take to echo the discussions on the word we use to mention taboos. Claudie is saying that we should also look at the intersections between different taboos. So for example, menstruating when facing a disability. I'm going to switch to Portuguese and French in the chat. So if ever someone else wants to jump in the discussion, they're welcomed.
Can I?
Claudie, yes.
I'd like to ask a question to Emily, because we heard a lot about some of the difficulties of approaching some issues in the celebration for disabled people, and you talk a lot about sexual health and you're a sex blogger. Is the issue of sexuality and sexual health for disabled people a subject that you actually tackle? Je voulais savoir si, Émilie, dans ton blog, est-ce que la question justement du handicap et de la sexualité, c'est quelque chose que tu abordes?
Pas spécifiquement sur mon blog. En tout cas, je n'ai pas encore commencé, mais j'ai participé à une causerie et il y avait pas mal de personnes en situation de handicap ou alors des parents de personnes vivant avec un handicap qui voulaient justement que j'inclue ça dans mes prises de parole. Il y a aussi, moi, ce côté où je ne me sens pas vraiment totalement légitime, en fait, pour parler de sexualité de personnes vivant avec un handicap. Mais j'ai une amie qui est dans une organisation de femmes en situation de handicap. Et avec elle, j'ai un projet de faire pas mal d'activités ou même des articles sur la sexualité de cette catégorie de femmes. Donc, c'est un projet.
I just want to, thank you, merci Emily. I just want to echo Brooke, who's saying that her taboo has gone missing, and my taboos have gone missing. So there is something maybe not working. Maybe we can continue that collection of taboos that we would want to tackle next time in another space, because I think it was really important to also open up our minds on what the taboos are and get your contributions. Donc Émilie, je disais juste que voilà, on a des tabous qui ont disparu, des personnes qui ont mis des tabous qui ne sont pas apparus. On va peut-être continuer cette conversation dans un autre espace où on peut continuer comme ça, avoir l'esprit ouvert et peut-être aussi enrichir notre vision de quels sont les tabous qu'on pourrait explorer ou qu'on pourrait discuter.
I have to apologize. It might be my fault because I'm a technological failure. I set it up and I don't think I did it well. There are many more things there, so we'll try and download it and share it in the final video. And maybe before that, we can hand over to Adriana for some closing thoughts.
Sure, thanks for that. Perhaps what we can do is even reopen again. I also didn't see my contributions, but we could reopen it because we want to continue this conversation. There was another one on the chat, what about mental health? And I'm sure that we're all like, you know, just crying with new issues that we want to put to the table. So again, remember, this is only the beginning of a conversation, not the end at all. I know I'm very aware of the time. We are 15 minutes over the promised time with people leaving, so I'm going to be very, very brief. Partly because I mean I live like all of you, with lots of things I want to continue thinking about, and definitely with the feeling that this is a conversation to be continued and a line of work and action that needs to be continued. Just a few thoughts or takeaways. The first one is I think that what we saw across the three discussions, sanitation, whether it comes to sanitation, disability or menstruation, we saw that taboos work in two ways that are very linked. So they either exclude, silence, alienate, stigmatize people because of who they are or because of what they do. And in fact, the two are very linked. And this is something that came very, very clearly, I think, in all the three presentations. And this is, I think, something as well that we started to unearth in one of the last discussions around the intersectionality of taboos, how multiple identities come together, become associated with things that shouldn't be done because of what you are. So clearly, I mean, that helps us to, I suppose, to remind us of how watchful we need to be about the way in which taboos, the efficiency of taboos, how efficient are taboos in reproducing these forces of alienation and exclusion endlessly, even beyond where we tend to think. A second thing that I thought that was quite also interesting and coming through the discussion had to do with the notion of collectivizing. I thought that, all of you were saying, well, actually, one of the key points, if we go back to the idea of celebration and celebrating taboos or changing or challenging through celebration of other means, taboos, the key point is to break the isolation of those who are the subject of the taboo. And I think that this is very important. So becoming part of a collective. And there were many references to that. No, we cannot have that conversation, Katarina was saying, in the family because we don't have it in the society. And so, of course, starting these conversations is extremely important because it collectivizes. It helps us to understand that what I think is just because of me, my problem and so on, actually, is very much a shared field that is subjected to action as well. I thought there was another point that was very interesting about the very delicate balance between who is involved in the celebration of a taboo, who drives it. So, of course, we heard about, the importance of, in some cases, the driving of a taboo was from outside those that were, say, for instance, experiencing open defecation. But as people took over, reappropriated the celebration with new meanings. In the case of disability, we saw people driving that from within and so on. So this question of, again, who drives it, and if not, if the celebration is not driven right from the beginning by those subjects, you know, how are they included? When do they find their voice? And when do they find something that was very interesting that someone was saying, this possibility of changing the language, yeah, with respect. There was, I thought, another point which was very interesting around the notion that celebration and challenging taboos through celebration can build confidence. To speak about the taboo can obviously also build recognition, but I think that there was a lot of emphasis as well on the actions, the impacts that can be built. And I noticed many of the questions were exactly about that, but so what? You know, you did the celebration, and so what changed after that? Clearly, most of you said the conversation changed or it started to change. Some actions follow. People themselves change in being part of a different conversation and so on. And I think that someone said it wasn't only the changing of the language, but the possibility of standing your ground. And I think that we have to be, this is not challenging a taboo, is not like a project where you implement, you build, you know, new pipes and so on, and whatever, you know, you have certain improved access to something. Challenging a taboo means really undoing something that is so naturalized that we hardly see it. So obviously is an invitation to be, you know, for very long term work. I just finalize, I think that, you know, perhaps the final thing to say is that I think that the challenging of taboos, the identification and the challenging of taboos through celebration again or other means is extraordinarily political. And I think that this is what transpired. It's not just something that has to do with cultural norms where we venture into agitating cultural norms. It's an extraordinarily political process and means because of what taboos do. Taboos do things that are extraordinarily political. So I stop here, conscious of the time, and I thank you very much for the provocations. We are definitely going to continue this conversation. We pose, I hope that we can see again an updated and more full-fledged Menti meter with all your propositions, but do please get in touch if you want to continue this conversation in any way. Tim, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity, as what Adriana said, to thank you all of you for your very constructive ideas and questions and comments. And I don't have much to do. Maybe if Julia, you want to say any last words, please do that and close the session.
No, thank you, Tim. I think you said everything. So yeah, thanks everyone. And I really enjoyed the session.
Bye.